I walked into Waikako's parlor to find Jackie not there and Waikako greeting me with a point towards a chair. Her eyes were on her TV again. Huh? Waikako really liked her shows, huh? I just shrugged and settled in to watch it with her. She would tell me what was up when Jackie got here. And it wasn't more than 20 minutes later that Waikako reached over and shut off the TV, just as Jackie Wells walked his bulk through the beaded door. "Ah, Waikako, I hope I'm not late?" he asked, having noticed me already sitting there. "No, Motoko was simply close by when I sent out the call," Waikako offered, and Jackie gave me a nervous smile. We hadn't talked since our noodle outing, and I had honestly been surprised it had taken so long since to get a gig. "Here are the details," Waikako offered, sending a message to both of us, and as we pulled open the files I was a little surprised. "This seems a little incendiary," I mentioned as I read who the target was. "That is why it is going through me and mercenaries are handling it. If you think just because peace was declared, that it really matters, you are naive," Waikako offered, and I nodded. The gig was to kidnap a 6th Street enforcer. A guy that had killed the family of a TC member during the little skirmishes during the war. The Tiger Claw client wanted the man who killed his family dead, but couldn't go after them directly anymore with the new peace. So Jackie and I were to kidnap Arnold Henderson for him. Kidnap. Not kill. "Motoko, make sure you are wearing something other than your normal gear," Waikako offered, and I understood why. Can't have this gig be done by Motoko Kusanagi, who could be ID'd as a member of the TC. Even though I wasn't. They just thought that. It wasn't true. But 6th Street might think it was true too. That's fine. I'll wear my Section 9 outfit instead. "Jackie?" I asked him. The big man had been reading through the details in silence, but he jerked a bit as I called out to him. "Yeah, Amana." "Questions? Problems? Things you've noticed?" I asked him, and he shook his head. "Not a problem. Not the first time I've kidnapped some poor pendejo," he said with a smile, and I nodded. But I didn't just rush forward. I had been burned a few times recently, due to my own planning falling short. Hiromi having to bail me out once I realized I had no place to put the net-running equipment sprung to mind. So I thought. How would the gig go? What would I need? Transport for the target? "I will have a car nearby for pickup," Waikako offered as she took a lazy drag on her cigarette. "Then I don't think we'll have any problems," I offered, but Jackie didn't seem to back me up afterwards. Waikako didn't care though, sending us both out of her office. Standing out on the street in front of Waikako's parlor, I looked to the bigger man and decided we needed to talk before this all went down. "My apartment is nearby. I'll need to grab some gear. You need anything from your place?" "I've already got everything I need," he offered, patting his jacket, where I noticed a bulge of a big pistol. "Big, but not Boya big." "Come on, we should probably talk a bit too," I told him as I guided him back to the apartment. "You've been weird since you came into Waikako's office. What's up, Jackie?" He was silent as we walked, but finally he sighed. "I still don't like it, Amanita," he said, surprising me with the changed word. My Spanish unfortunately not good enough to translate. "That you had teamed with me?" "Not. You're just a kid. I just don't like the idea of me being responsible for keeping you safe," he revealed, and I was silent for a while this time as we walked into my complex. Jackie looked around a little interested as I led him to the elevator. Only when the doors closed did I speak. "I said before, let's team up for a few gigs and get a feel for each other. And I get this is our first time working together. So I get the confusion, and the hesitance. Not every day you see a teenager do our sort of work." "You trying to say I should shut up and see for myself?" he asked with a side smile. "Hey," I snorted at Jackie's instant rejoinder. "Yes, but no. I'm saying I get it. I'm still a kid. Listen, we have a gig, let's do the gig, and afterwards you'll see I'm capable." Jackie sighed but nodded. "All right, Amanita. Let's go grab this gonk then." I nodded as the elevator opened and I motioned for Jackie to follow me into my place. The door opened and June was there. June, who was looking mighty concerned about the fact a big Valentino guy just walked into the apartment. "Ah, June-ni, this is Jackie," Jackie, this is my brother June. I introduced the two of them as the tension seemingly ratcheted up. Thankfully it seemed mostly on June's end as he was glaring and starting to square up. Jackie was reacting, but mostly looking pretty uncomfortable. Ignoring the byplay, I walked up to June and slugged him in the stomach. It was really annoying that I could barely make my brother flinch when I did that. I was going to need to upgrade to some gorilla arms or something, so I could properly gut punch him. Don't mind June, Jackie. Why don't you take a seat for a bit? We have drinks in the fridge if you're thirsty. I just need to armor up, I told him as I left the room. As much as I wanted to stay and keep any friction down, it would be best if I just hurry up and get ready to go. I could hear the quiet voices in the living room as I rushed through putting on my armored clothes. Although I did leave the ninja mask behind. Suited up, I headed back into the living room. Both June and Jackie were still standing around sort of sizing each other up. Okay. All set, let's hit the road. We got gonks to deal with, I called out, and while Jackie looked to me, June was still glaring. Sure Hermanita, let's go, he muttered, backing out the door, while June just glared at him. I took a moment before I walked out behind Jackie to turn to June and give him a what the fuck gesture. He just continued to scowl, but eventually at my refusal to stop glaring back, he shrugged and just waved me on. Stupid Onii-chan, I told him, earning a scoff, and then I refocused on Jackie. Time to get to work. Jackie Wells. You didn't tell me your brother was the damn Oni of Kamikaze. Jackie finally spoke as they walked into the sunlight on the street. Huh? Yeah? Does it really matter? The kid asked, turning back to him. Her face showing her honest confusion only made Jackie wonder what was wrong with this kid all the more. He's a step away from, you know. They all are, and I'm hanging around his kid sister. Maybe a warning would have been a good idea? The purple-haired girl cocked her head to the side as she seemed to process what he had said before she snorted loudly. Come on, you're way too old for me, and June knows that. He just doesn't know you. I'll tell him about our gig together after, and he will probably be a lot nicer next time he sees you, she offered with a smile and a wave back and forth of her chrome hand. Next time, she says, he muttered, shaking his head. The look that kid was giving him? Yeah, Jackie wouldn't want to run into him in some dark alley. What the fuck am I doing? Jackie shook his head. This wasn't what he expected when he got in with Waikiko. It didn't feel right running with a teenager. Is this all he was? Equal to a teenager in the grand scheme of things? Jackie shook off the downer thoughts. No. He was a merc, good enough to work with Waikiko. It's just this girl was just as good. Maybe? So want to ride with me? She asked as they were both standing on the sidewalk. My quadra can fit us both. He blinked. You drive a quadra? Yeah, a Type 66. I looted from a Wraith I flatlined on a gig. It's preem. And there she goes again, saying something that makes Jackie have to rethink everything. Sure. Hermanita. I only brought my bike anyway. Cool. She chirps and leads him across the street, leaving Jackie with his thoughts about what he was getting into. Was she skipping? Mierda. What the hell was his life? Inside the parking structure, she led him over to a pitch-black quadra. A desert runner. She was right, it was a preem ride. Jump in, she called as she climbed into the driver's seat, and Jackie followed, sliding into the seat, although having to adjust the box that was on the passenger floor. Oh, I forgot about those. Just push the box under the seat. Or take a few if you want. Grenades can be fun. Jackie very carefully pulled open the case on the floor, showing an array of grenades resting inside. There were indeed a handful of grenades in the bottom of the box. You keep grenades in your car? I made them myself. Or at least some of them. June got mad about me keeping them in the apartment, so they are stuck in the car now. I really need to make some time to make another batch. Make? Yeah? It's easy. You just throw some stuff together, make sure you keep the triggers secure, and boom. Grenade. Well, not boom right then. You only want them to boom afterwards, you know? She said, and then chuckled a bit, making Jackie realize she was telling a joke. He couldn't help but chuckle a bit in return, although it might have been nervous laughter. Homemade grenades between his legs, Mierda. Motoko finally reached the street as she had taken forever in his eyes to pull out into a gap in traffic, and then to his surprise, she drove. Well, she drives like an old granny. He blinked as she used her turn signal, stopped at the lights instead of blowing through them. He had never seen a teenager actually follow traffic laws. Hell, he still only sometimes followed them himself. What a weird kid. So plan on how we handle this guy? She asked, never taking her eyes off the road. Jackie had to think about it. He wasn't usually the planning sort of guy, but he was with a kid. Couldn't go in guns blazing. Well, Wakako gave us his current location, but that could change. We wait and see. If it's an easy smash and grab, that would be good. If not, we follow him home. Pick him up in his sleep. Okay, I'll be able to get some intel hopefully. Doubt a place like this has a runner watching the system, she mentioned, and he relaxed a little. At least the kid was smart enough not to want to rush in guns blazing. That was Jackie's normal method, and not one he would want a 14-year-old copying. As they pulled into the neighborhood, Jackie got the first look at the place. It was an old garage, now used as a drug lab from Wakako's records. And their target was the owner, a mid-level boss in 6th Street. That's plenty of cars, Jackie muttered, and Motoko nodded, frowning as she drove past the place. The parking lot had a good handful of cars all resting in it. I'll park somewhere close and sneak up to check their security, Motoko said, and despite Jackie's desire to stop her, he just nodded. Wakako had said she was an infiltrator. She would have to be good. So he watched as she parked down the street, stepped out and meandered her way towards the garage, slipping around the fence that cut off the place's lot from the business next door. And Jackie waited. He did end up pulling out his new. He wanted to be ready in case a gunfight broke out, so he checked his gun, making sure she was loaded, and he had the extra magazines on his hip. Then a call came from the kid. He accepted it. Jackie, I'm in their security. They really need someone who knows what they are doing. I'm gonna bounce the cameras to you so you can see what I'm looking at. And a moment later a video request came through his agent. And then a window popped up in his eyes, and although it was blurry and a bit laggy, he was looking at the interior of the garage. Found our guy, he is hanging out on the ground floor, looking over the drug production, she said, but Jackie had to squint a bit, not that it helped at the picture before. He was pretty sure that Blur was the guy. I think I see him. Think? Connection is low, reasoned laggy, he muttered as he checked over the video. At least he could make out how many guards there were. What? That doesn't. Your optics, they any good? No, he replied, laughing over the line. His optics were old. Vic kept bugging him about them, but he didn't have the eddies for a good upgrade. Besides, they looked good, and that was half the reason he kept them. Made his eyes look all soulful. Always got the ladies to cut him some slack. Gonk. Okay. I'll stop sharing then. I'm pretty sure that room upstairs is his office and bedroom. Wakako did say he lived here. So we could kidnap him right out of his room. I've already taken over the security system. The cameras won't send him any alerts. Damn. You can do that? Jackie asked, surprised. He hadn't worked with a netrunner that could do that before. Yeah, it's hard to do most of the time, but the security this guy set up is shit. Old NUSA protocols, stuff that would have been solid a decade ago, but it's already been solved. I've already taken their entire system. Well, we are getting somewhere. How many guards do you see, Amanita? Other than our target, there are 4 on-site guards, and 3 workers. We will still have to treat the workers as threats though. Yeah, people won't want to lose a gig that pays in eddies like gang work. He agreed. He had been attacked by plenty of staff at places to know that. Alright. Hey Jackie. I've got an idea. Under the seat, a few of those grenades are flash grenades. We go in hard, stun everyone and secure the area. I can reboot the optics of anyone that causes any trouble as well, since I'm already in their system, and then we're gone. Jackie considered it. He wasn't normally a sneaky type, and knowing where everything was made it a lot easier. He took a moment to actually consider it. He didn't want to risk the kid after all. Then he nodded. If they hit them hard it would work. You're sure these grenades will work? Oh yeah, they are preem. I'm ready when you are. He nodded quickly, checking the box carefully and pulling 2 of the flashbang grenades out of the box before realizing he had nodded. "All right. On my way," he said, taking a deep breath and stepping out of the car. Nu in one hand, and grenades in the other. "Time to work, Jackie." He hurried down the street, jogging but moving confidently as he came up on the garage window right next to the door leads to them. "Break it and toss the stunners," Motoko informed him, and he nodded, quickly holstering his Nu, and popping the pins on both grenades. "Sending them now." And then he slammed them through the window. A moment later 2 very loud bangs went off. Jackie was already kicking in the door, his Nu in his hand as he rushed in, ready to knock some gonks around. Which he did instantly. A worker was stumbling around and Jackie gave them a quick left to knock them out of the fight. His feet moved as he rushed his target, who was trying to escape as the man stumbled around trying to find the exit. Jackie slammed into him, smashing him against the concrete with his bulk, sending the poor bastard into unconsciousness. "Bastard!" a voice called out, one of the guards. Jackie raised his Nu, but he hadn't needed to rush. A moment later the man's eyes crackled with electricity and he cried out as he suddenly went blind. Kid was fast. Fuck. A scream called out behind him, causing him to look up. Right outside the office one of the guards stood, weapon in hand, desperately looking around blindly as his eyes had stopped working too. Then a moment later a loud bark of gunfire and the guy slammed into the stairs and blood started dripping down the metal. Damn, that was a big boom. 2 more still, Jackie. The voice reminded him, and he rose up, marching across the garage floor to the other 2 guards that were trying to hide while recovering from the flashbang. Jackie simply slammed into them, punching and slamming them into the ground. They didn't get up after a few moments of his attention. "The workers are cowering. Grab the target. I'll cover you," Motoko whispered in his ear, and he did just that. The girl was good Overwatch, Jackie had to admit. He rushed the unconscious gonk and grabbed him, throwing him over his shoulder as he ran for the main door. "Jackie! Stop!" Motoko's voice in his ear, sounding loudly, sent his feet skidding on the concrete. Another car just pulled up, more 6th Street. "Turn around. Out through the back. I'll keep them distracted," she demanded, and while Jackie wanted to hesitate and argue, he hadn't seen the girl once since the fight started, despite her making her presence known. So he turned and rushed the back door. It gave way to his shoulder as he rushed out into a back lot that was nothing but an overgrown lot. He closed the door behind him just in time to hear the loud yells of someone realizing something was up. "Get over the fence. I'll make it so they won't be able to see you until it's too late. Go." He went rushing across the yard towards the fence that was looming over him. Getting over a fence wasn't hard. Doing it while carrying someone was. But before he even reached the fence, Motoko was running beside him, her eyes glowing gold as she was still on a call with him. "I'll go over first and lift the gonk," she tells him, and he nods, watching as she races ahead and scrambles up the fence like it was nothing. Then one leg over it she reaches down and he practically throws the gonk at her. To his surprise, she didn't struggle much with holding him up. He expected her to have a bit more trouble with it, but it let him climb up beside her, and between the 2 of them, they heaved the guy over, ignoring the groan he gave off when they dropped him down the other side. He hunkered down, looking through the fence, expecting to see a horde of angry 6th Street, but there was nothing. Did they not see us? Kind of hard to see anything when your whole group's optics turn off one after another. "Come on, let's get out of here before they can see again," she told him, and Jackie nodded, grabbing the guy and running. In the end they ran a few blocks down and waited for Waikako's car to pick up the poor bastard. Once he was safely in the trunk, Motoko's quadra came rolling down the street and they both slipped in. That went pretty well, actually. After getting confirmation from Waikako that she had the target, we both got wired the eddies as I was driving back home. "So what did you think?" I asked. Jackie had been quiet for a while, mostly just smiling to himself at the reward for the gig. "You're certainly the best Overwatch I've ever been with. You helped every step of the way," Jackie muttered quietly. Obviously the big man was thinking. "Yep, and I couldn't have done it without you. Trying to haul that guy out by myself would have been a disaster. Like I said before, I need someone to work with. I'm best as either outright infiltrator, or an Overwatch position. So want to keep working together?" "Hey. Alright, Amanita. You've proven your point. You know how to handle yourself, even if I still think you are too young. What is that cannon you are packing, by the way? When you fired that thing I thought my head was going to ring. Asked my booyah. I mentioned as I pulled her out of the holster and passed her over. That's a big gun, Jackie said, looking surprised at my girl. Ha. I don't go anywhere without her. Anymore. Never know when you'll come face to face with a Borg that needs something with oomph. Never needed anything bigger than my new personally, Jackie said, slinging his pistol out and even twirling it on his finger. Gonk. But I was smiling even so. New are good guns. Honestly, if I came across one while on a gig I would snatch it. But my Lexington is nice, it balances my booyah. I got the big loud hand cannon for big stuff, and the automatic pistol for small fry. Heh, smart. I'm surprised you can even shoot this thing. I mean, I've heard horror stories about gonks trying it without the right chrome. I know you got your arms, but is that enough? Honestly? No. But when I first got it, I nearly broke every bone in my arm firing it. Don't tell my brother I told you that, he still doesn't know. Anyway, I figured out a trick on how to handle the recoil so I can actually use it. I sort of rolled my right wrist, showing Jackie. It's all in how you lock your joints and the give in your body. Huh? He mentioned, looking at the booyah with a glimmer in his eye that I couldn't help but laugh at. If you want to give it a try, I don't mind, but before you go buying more iron, how about some new chrome? Those optics you got could use an upgrade. What even are they? My scan says Omicron Z to something or other. I mentioned, earning a chuckle from Jackie. Yeah, my Oz Soul 3.0, they aren't the best optics on the market, but they got the best soulful look. You'd be amazed at how many times these eyes got me out of trouble. Just a minute of my soulful stare works wonders, every time. With a bit of old boy politeness, of course, he said, chuckling. Gonk. I could help but laugh. I'm pretty sure a pair of Kiroshi would serve you a lot more. Maybe. I'll ask Vic about it sometime, he said with a shrug, and I let it go. We weren't really partners yet. No point in trying to push things. Alright, this is our stop, I mentioned as I pulled into the parking garage of my apartment. Sure you don't want to celebrate our gig with a meal? Next time, Amanita. Jackie assures me as he reaches over and shakes my shoulder. I've got plans already for tonight. Got a date? He offers, laughing, and I smile. Oh? Girlfriend? Of course. Camilla has been on my ass all week about going out on a big date, and I finally got the eddies. Have a good night, Motoko. He offered as he stepped out, but I was too shocked. Right. Jackie wasn't dating Misty. They weren't even friends yet. Oh. I really didn't want to get involved in getting a gonk like Jackie dating his true girl. It'll sort itself out. Right? Welcome back. June called out as I entered the apartment. Hey June, you still around? No work until tonight. You good? Your gig go well with that gorilla? PFFT. I burst into laughter. What is it with you and gorillas recently? You called me that too. It just fits is all, he said as I joined him on the couch. He had been watching some TV show, his feet up on the table, letting me see the way his feet were covered in that grayish plastic that meant it was chrome, but hadn't been covered in real skin. All right, but out of the two of us only you look like a gorilla, I teased him, grabbing his attention away from the TV to give me a grumpy look. I might look like one, but you have the personality of one, June said bluntly, and then turned back to the TV. That absolute asshole. I punched him in the side, which he ignored. Stupid Borg. I punched him again, and again, tenderizing his side until finally he got annoyed and grabbed at me, which led both of us wrestling on the couch. You are proving my point. He growled at me, but I ignored his words. In the end, June won the wrestling match, and I retreated to my room to lick my wounds from once again being defeated by my stupid brother. It wasn't fair. Flopping on my bed, I looked around the room, at all the stuff that I had collected. The stuff that sort of sat on top of the old Motoko's stuff. Old tiger claw junk hidden under guns or equipment I had nabbed. I even reached under the bed and patted the Uragan case, just making sure it was still there. What was my next goal? Probably jump back into programming again, I thought. I still wanted to upgrade my reboot optics and weapon glitch hacks. If I could get both working, being able to interfere with multiple people at once, I would go from only being able to disable 8 or 9 gonks back to back before my poor Sicho couldn't handle it, to dozens. Of course my programming laptop was out in the living room, so I got back up off my bed and headed out. As soon as I appeared, June noticed and raised both hands in knife hands as if he expected me to attack him. Gonk, I told him before ignoring his presence and grabbing my laptop. Ah, so you calmed down, good. Wild gorilla, oof. He grunted as I didn't punch him, just chucked a pillow into his face. Stop instigating. I have work to do. I told him as if I was the adult and he was the child. He huffed and ignored me, though, going back to his show. While I dug into the program that I had found incredibly useful. Reboot optics. My previous work on it made me cringe as I looked at it. I could do better, so much better. So just like Ping, I decided to just start from scratch. Reboot optics at its most simple was a virus, infesting optical systems and causing them to reboot, or overload, depending on the chrome. It worked, but it could be better. There was something I had learned from using computers in the past. Most users had no idea what the tech they were using actually did, or how it worked. They knew enough to use the basic functions they were familiar with, and that is it. Any actual in-depth knowledge was completely beyond them. So rather than attacking the system causing it to reboot, which was a pretty common method, I wanted to hit them with a double whammy. It wouldn't work on every optical system, but the idea had hit me as soon as I started writing the program. Inspired programmer coming in clutch. Instead of the virus just causing a reboot, it did one other small change into the system while it was rebooting. It was going to set the visual brightness of the chrome to 0. I hadn't been surprised that dimming effects on optics were very popular. Being able to dim your eyes when things got bright was a common enough feature in most optics, and those that don't have it, still had settings to adjust how the brain processed the image. All I had to do was make it so the system when it rebooted would still show nothing but a black, or incredibly dark picture to the brain. The normal gonk would freak out when their eyes suddenly rebooted, only to then still be blind when their system starts back up. Sure, all they would have to do is go into their settings to adjust the vision. Their HUD system would still work as normal. Unless I adjusted the color of the HUD to match the dimmed visuals. Hey. But I would bet money that most people didn't even know a settings menu existed in their optics. It wouldn't work for long against people who knew what they were doing, but it would still take time to fix their eyes themselves. Time in a gunfight that could prove lethal. Sure, the program was going to need to be completely remodeled to do the double load, but that just required a bit of work. It's what good programming could do. Instead of ballooning the program too much, when I was done, my reboot optics would hopefully be even slimmer than the off-the-shelf shovelware I had been using. And it could affect multiple people at once. Of course, unlike Ping, which had only taken a couple of days to program up. Reboot optics was going to take a while. There were no quick shortcuts here. Each piece of the coding would need a lot of attention to make sure it worked. But thanks to my perks, not only was it doable, not only was it going to be amazing when it was done, but it was actually really fun. Watching my coding turn into a weapon. That image so long ago of me crafting a magical sword was stuck in my head. I guess Inspired Programmer knew what I needed to stay engaged, because I was going to make the best magical eye-gouging digital sword I could. Hey. June interrupted me, waving his hand in front of my face, making me look away from my line of code with a glare. What? Been calling you for a minute. I'm heading out, got some easy work. Don't stay up all night, and get some food and stuff. I don't want to see you totally spaced out in the same spot again when I get home, he ordered, waving a finger in my face. Like all teenagers everywhere, I rolled my eyes, but did set an alarm in my HUD. Alarm is set, I'll eat and sleep. Be safe, I demanded in return, and June smiled confidently before patting me on the head. I'll see you in the morning, Motoko. June offered, and I threw up a thumbs up in return, which he chuckled at as he walked out of the apartment. I quickly got up and stretched a bit and headed into the kitchen. A can of something sugary and carbonated was collected and opened. Time to get back to work. I did end up going to sleep when my alarm went off, if for no other reason that June would bug me if I didn't. But before I could get back to programming, I got a call from Hiromi. "Motoko, you busy?" "Not overly," I said, looking at the laptop that was just begging me to come and finish more work. "Great. Meet me at the Straight Lane Apartments." "What? You okay?" "Course. But I need to talk to Richard and I would rather have my favorite bodyguard with me," Hiromi teased, but I laughed because honestly it was pretty true. "Alright. I'm on my way." Like before, the apartment didn't have close parking, so I ended up parking half a block away and having to walk. When I got there, Hiromi was already waiting outside. She wasn't alone though. The girls that had bothered me the first time I had returned to the apartment were surrounding Hiromi, and I narrowed my eyes. I remember how aggressive they had been to me, but if they were threatening Hiromi, I was gonna have to give a beatdown. I went cold and snuck closer, my boots going utterly silent on the concrete as I approached from the girl's blind spot. Hiromi of course spotted me, and I could spot how her spine straightened a bit. As I stalked closer, I could hear Hiromi speaking in a rush. "Not interested. Richard and your gang are a good contact. I'm not interested in putting out orders. Not my style." "Yeah? Well, it's not my style to listen to some corpo rat either, and don't think I don't know that. You got the stink of a corp all over you." The smaller of the two girls muttered, her shotgun in her hands, in a way that made me twitchy. Besides, Hiromi actually looked hurt from that. She was still sensitive about it, despite her origin not mattering. Hiromi is Hiromi. So before she had to open her mouth and defend her birth, I was there. Chrome hands gripping harshly on the barrels of shotguns and holding them down firmly. "Wha? Hey. I think that's enough. Mary, right?" I asked the taller girl, the only one that had given her name last time. "Hey, bitch, let go." The smaller girl was fighting my grip on her shotgun, but she may as well have been a child. She was a lot smaller than me, and I had weight and chrome on my side, and an athleticism that put me far over the average teenage girl. "No. You were bothering my tune, so I get to interfere. Hiromi? You cool?" Despite the seriousness, Hiromi snorted at me. "I'm cool, Motoko," she assures me, purposefully smiling at my words. Cool was still cool. "You can let go, we weren't trying to threaten her," the taller girl, Mary, said, despite glaring at me for holding her gun down. "All right," I agreed and let go of both barrels, although I kept my hands close to my chest. If I needed to quick draw my boya, I could fire before they bring the barrels up. I was sure. "Fuck. Spooky quiet, bitch," the short girl hissed as she backed up, but seemed to look to Mary, who just shook her head, and despite seething, she didn't attack. "Why were you messing with my tune?" "We weren't messing with her. Just making sure she understood we aren't her toys." "I never said you were," Hiromi argued, obviously irritated as she growled a bit. "I told you, I'm just gonna be helping you guys get gigs, like a fixer. Richard is still your boss, you know, the guy that agreed to work with me, and is expecting me for a conversation, that Richard." "Whatever. Just remember what we said," Mary offered and turned to walk into the apartment. I glared at them as they walked to the elevator. Considering I had control of the system, I had to stop myself from stopping the elevator somewhere and just getting them stuck in there for a few hours. "Thanks, Motoko. You saved me again," Hiromi offered as she leaned in against my shoulder for a moment, seemingly taking energy from the contact. "Yeah. Don't come here alone again. I don't like those two, they tried to threaten me too." "I think they are Richard's girls. Or at least the tall one," Hiromi offered, and I nodded, taking in the information. "They don't like that we are girls?" "Yep." Hiromi shrugged. "They'll get easier to deal with as long as we don't flirt with their guy," she said, and I snorted at the very idea. Richard was way too much of a gonk for me to be interested, and Hiromi was way too good for him. We ended up waiting for the elevator to come back down, as of course the girls had gone up to the 5th floor where we were going. The 5th floor, the level that the gang had completely commandeered for their own. I hadn't been there yet, only seen it through windows on the outside, or from the cameras that were around, and I hadn't yet found out why they chose that floor. But honestly, it didn't matter. It wasn't any of my business. We rode up mostly in silence. Hiromi was psyching herself up and so I was just quiet support, there to make sure she was safe. The door opened into a pretty standard apartment hallway. Trash was growing up the walls in places, but that was the norm for most apartments. Waiting for us were the two girls, both looking irritated, and as we stepped off the shorter one spoke. "Follow us, Richard is waiting," she grumbled, obviously annoyed at being the one to guide us. Hiromi and I followed down the hallway. Most of the apartment doors were open, not that it mattered, holes were in the walls letting anyone see inside or out. Kids were all over the place, but so were adults. One of the apartments had an old lady in a chair watching the TV, ignoring the group of kids in the apartment playing some sort of game. Or the man that was in another hunched over a desk and working on fixing something or other. I guess while Waikako's original brief that the gang had kicked out everyone on the floor wasn't entirely accurate. We were led to a doorway that had been entirely busted down, the stupid bead curtains the only protection for it, and inside was, well, a throne room wasn't quite right, but a gathering place. Richard was seated in what had once been this apartment's circular entertainment bar, but stools and tables surrounded the room, and many of them were filled. As we approached, Richard waved for us to join him in the circular couch which was empty except for him, and now us. Well, Hiromi, I stood behind her instead, just like the girls we followed had moved to stand behind Richard. "You said you wanted to talk," Hiromi offered, instantly leaning back trying to pull off the badass fixer vibe. Considering these were a bunch of teens, I think it worked. "I did," Richard confirmed, and I noticed all of a sudden that the amount of people surrounding him was a lot smaller than it had been that night on the roof. Shit hasn't been great since Morgan and Vel died. I've had a lot of people just delta on me, and some who have stolen from us. That last part is a problem. I want to get back some of the stuff that belongs to us." "And that is where we come in?" Hiromi asked bluntly, not sounding very interested. "Right, yeah. The problem isn't just that they stole from us. We can ignore some weapons going missing, I'll consider that stuff square. But someone stole something a bit bigger. A vehicle. Morgan's old car. I had taken it for myself, but it went missing, and Carter claimed it. Had someone get eyes on him driving it around." Richard sounded pretty pissed at this. "Wait. Was this entire meeting because of street gang politics? You expect a gig like that to be on our radar? Come on." Hiromi almost mocked us, went from relaxing back to glaring and sitting forward. "Why would we care?" "Because you're Chum, Martiko, you wanted protection. Being able to leave your stuff in the basement and trust none of us mess with it. I can't be disrespected like this and still be the leader," he says just as blunt. "Unless I do something, and soon, the gang will splinter even more, and then any deal you have with me won't matter much to whoever takes over the Straight Lane apartments after." "Sounds like blackmail," Hiromi said, not smiling, which was rare for the girl. "Call it whatever you want, but I'm being serious. That's what will happen if something doesn't change. Why not go after it yourself? You have weapons, people," Hiromi pointed out, sounding annoyed at the situation, probably more than I was. "Carter went and joined another gang," he said with a scowl. "I don't exactly want to piss of the claws," Richard said, scowling, and I was surprised to hear that. No way this Carter guy managed to get into the TC in any respects in such a short time. Hiromi argued, being a former TC wannabe, Hiromi understand exactly how difficult it was to actually join the TC. Unless he showed up with high-end weapons, an expensive car, and a group all willing to follow him, Richard said, pointing out that Hiromi was wrong. "How many weapons did he steal from you?" I asked, interrupting for the first time. "A crate. Some of the good stuff," Richard said, scowling and looking away, unable to meet our face. "Must be pretty embarrassing to have your gang splinter and get a bunch of stuff stolen." "Then what do you think we can do about it?" "I'm not planning on picking a fight with the TC either," Hiromi offered, and Richard scowled. "I don't know. But that's what's going to happen, and since you went to so much effort to protect your stuff in the basement, I figured you should at least be told. Maybe you could do something about it." Hiromi sighed, looking towards me, and her eyes went gold as she called me. "What do you think?" "I think that we either need to find a new place to set up my net running gear, or we need to get this gonk his car back." "From the TC?" They won't like that. Well, we have a few options, I guess. We could just try talking to this Carter, or the TC he is with. No way some street kid gives up a preem ride Motoko. Then we could always just clip it. That could lead to the TC getting pissed with us. If Carter did impress enough to get in, then stealing his ride would be like stealing from the TC. Sounds like we need info. We should go talk to Carter and his boss. Figure out what the situation is. I offered and Hiromi nodded. Richard, we will look into it, but no promises. But if we do return your car, let's talk about payment. And we don't come cheap, Hiromi said with a sinister smile. Hiromi was going to leave this kid destitute.